Back to 2017, I was 14 when I went to Florida with my family for 3 weeks of beaches, pools, restaurants, and local food. The kind of holidays I'll never live again. And one evening, I was on YouTube and I was watching a video of Squeezy, my favorite videographer at the time. And in this video, he was telling the well known story of Robert the Doll. The story begins at the turn of the last century, when an African maid of the Otto family, rich Floridian aristocrats, gives a doll to their son, Robert. From the beginning, Robert falls in love with his doll and never leaves it, so much so that he changes his name for Eugene in order to name his doll by its real name. But legends quickly circulate about this doll. It's said that the maid practiced voodoo magic and bewitched the doll to harm the family. Some of the family's guests ran out of the Otto's house, swearing that the doll had tried to strangle them. Eugene's parents discover bruises and burn marks on the child. A child who amuses himself speaking casual chatting with Robert by alternating his child's voice with the voice of his doll. Hoarse, almost superhuman, almost diabolic. In short, the Robert doll scares the whole neighborhood. Sparing all the scary details that see the context of the story, Eugene ends up dying alone with his allegedly haunted doll. At the end of the video, Squeezy announces that the doll can now be seen in a museum in the United States, at the Art and Historical Museum in Key West, Florida. Stunned by this news, I looked to see if this information was true, and God, it was. I immediately told my parents, asking them if we would be passing through Key West on the trip. And of course, on the last 3 days, just before returning to France, we'd make a diversion to Key West, so it was decided. I'd meet the Robert doll on the last full day of our trip. Key West is the southernmost city in the United States. You have to take a highway bordered on both sides by the ocean, so it's an extremely isolated pre-island. As a result, the local folklore is extremely strong, and Robert is known to all, besides to justify a mistake. The local children used to say Robert did it. The last day came, and with excitement, my family and I set off for the museum. It was a very dilapidated and unwelcoming fort, hollowed out by time, the wind and the sea, with seagulls eating the corpses of their siblings in the car park. We enter, and a red-headed lady in her 50s is at the reception. We talk to her to find out about the museum, and incidentally to find out about Robert from the most qualified person, the museum guard. There, we don't joke with Robert. To take a picture of him, you have to ask him a question and wait for his answer. Some say that a bright reflection in his black eyes means a positive answer. The lady warns us that some people weakly disrespect the doll, and it ends up sending a letter of apology to Robert at the museum so that he'll stop the mischief. She adds that there's a video of a man hitting Robert's glass. This man died later that day in a road accident. I, little French that I was, naively asked if I could ask Robert to take a picture of him, as advised, in French, in a foreign language. And what did the lady reply? Try it. You'll be the very first. When we started the visit, my family and I were really enchanted. We were crazy. We explored all the corners of the fort in search of Robert, apprehending all the same our meeting. We pass old cannons, military costumes, old rusty weapons. And as we turn down a hallway on our right, there he is, Robert, the century-old doll, accused of being the reason of multiple unexplained deaths in Key West. The inspiration for the Annabelle and Chucky dolls, the main subject of Squeezy's horror video. Here we are, face to face. The doll is tall, sitting on a chair and enclosed in a glass cage. Behind him, letters of apology from multiple countries. Mexico, Germany, Qatar, all written in English and imploring Robert to break the curse he's cast on them, which dissuaded us from being impolite. I take my courage in both hands and say, "Hello, Robert. I'm from France and will be delighted to take you in a picture. Could I?" In French, a world first. I took a picture of him and sent it to all my friends via Snapchat to show that I was the bravest, reckless kid of my generation. With my photo taken, we hurriedly finished our visit and returned to the hotel. The next day, the day of the big departure, we don't have breakfast because of a lack of time. Pack our bags and climb into the car to Miami, where we'll take a plane to France in the afternoon. At 11 o'clock in the morning, we came across Wendy's, a fast food restaurant specialised in breakfasts, so we stopped there to eat. We sit down, order, wait, receive, eat and pay for our order. When we finish our meal, we go back to our car and we're shocked to find it in a really abnormal state. All the windows are broken except the front one. There's glass inside our car as much as outside, meaning that the windows exploded and were not smashed from the outside. And more disturbing, our suitcases are intact. My headphones that were on the back seats are still on the same place as where I'd left them. We weren't robbed. We weren't carjacked. We weren't stolen. The windows just exploded, all at the same time. As if Robert did it. It happened in 2008, when I was 13 years old. Back then, I had a kind of weird female friend. Let's just call her Suzanne. She was a really kind person, but she had some weird habits, such as lighting 2 candles in front of the mirror in her bathroom, and just chill there, she said. It didn't bother me because I only knew about it from her telling it to me while we were chatting on MSN. Until one day, she called me and wanted to meet me. However, after exactly 1 minute passed, my phone was kind of broken. I didn't hear her or any noises at all, like my phone would have been frozen. I looked at the screen and the counter stopped by 1 minute. I tried to turn it off and turn it on again, but it didn't work. Then I called her. "Susan, can you hear me?" Instead of an answer, all I heard was a girl breathing very deep and loud, like someone with a lung illness. Then I said, "Suzanne, stop fucking with me. It's not funny at all." After that, I heard a scratching noise as if someone was scratching a school board with their nails. Really unpleasant noise, I have to say. At the end, I heard a girl screaming, but not like she was scared, more like a charge or an attack against me. Then suddenly, the counter continued counting. I heard back noises and also Suzanne's voice, being shocked as well. She then asked me, "What the hell was this? Do you think it's funny?" She swore that it was not her the whole time and that she also had been hearing everything I explained to her later. But she also said that she was chilling in front of the mirror while we were talking on the phone. I told this to my mom because I was scared. She told me to go to the church, kneel in front of the altar and pray to God to protect me from this thing. Strangely, I never did it. I didn't want to do it for some reason. It happened a long time ago. I'm now older and live in another country. We lost contact with Suzanne because we stopped talking with each other after this incident. To be honest, I was always interested in paranormal activities, but I never wished to be involved in such an experience. I contacted Suzanne after about 6 years to ask how she's doing. She's still submitting that back then it was not her making those strange noises, and that she still thinks that it was me joking with her. I live in a 200-year-old pub in the UK. We're currently converting it into 6 apartments and a 4-storey house. Obviously, upsetting something. I have some creepy footage and a full body apparition photo. I've done a little bit of research and found a young boy died outside in the early 1800s and an older man in the start of the 1900s. The pub was built in 1822, was used as a boarding house and pub. When first opened, it was used for the canal workers commuting and staying. Also been told from a local historian, the upper 2 floors were known as a well-known brothel in the Victorian period. The landlord who sold us the property found a bricked-up room located on the roadside of the pub, between the 2nd and 1st floor. It's a tiny room just off a curve in the stairs. Even plastered now, it's a creepy room. When he first moved here in the 70s, in it was a box of old newspaper clippings and that was it. He confirms my thoughts on an older male spirit and a younger woman. I'm unsure about the children, as never heard or seen them. However, our keys move around and drop to the first floor, when they're kept on the ground floor on the hook in the kitchen. But every now and then, you hear them hit the laminates and be there in the middle of the hallway on the first floor landing. We have in general things move around a lot. Disembodied voices and conversations. Like when you hear outside your door when you know people are talking but can't quite make out what's being said. All the time. My partner and I forever walk to find one another in the house, thinking the other was having a conversation with either ourselves or someone else. Windows open and doors slam a lot. Mostly at night, the kitchen door will sound like there are people in and out until the early hours. I think personally, this is residual energy. Since last year now, I've had the most vivid, awful dreams that involve me throwing myself out of the top bedroom window. Always the same dream, but I remember different parts more or less vividly. It's truly horrific. I've also seen and dreamt about a lady. She's dressed all in black with a hat on and corseted long dress with black petticoats. Her corset has purple ribbon throughout. Her hair is slanted to the side with a sort of netting over her face. I remember just feeling so sad and lost. She began at the bottom of the bedroom stairwell, which is just off the first floor hallway where the keys always appear. Then she walks up the stairs as I follow her and look up at the top of my stairs. The top of my stairs has a really small loft hatch. I've never been there. However, as I run up the stairs to her, she had hung herself from that loft hatch. In the kitchen on the ground floor, I've also felt what I thought to be a man stand behind me. I felt the weight of him on the floor behind me, if that makes sense. I felt him breathe on my neck and talk to me. I've spun around so fast, literally thinking my boyfriend was there, as it literally felt like a human, physical being stood right behind me. Also, he's talked to me when I've been falling asleep or like half asleep a few times, either calling my name or telling me to go to sleep now. I've had a medium do a walkthrough, and she's told me an old protective man is here and two young children, one boy and one girl. She didn't pick up on the young lady at the time, but just previous to this, I had an experience when in the kitchen, I just felt like someone was watching me. It felt like her. It's so weird to describe, but you can tell the difference between the male energy and the female energy. I said out loud that she could move on. All I kept hearing in my head was, I don't deserve peace. So out loud, I told her that everyone deserves peace and that she can move on. I told her I was going to light a candle for her, and if she sees the light, to go with it. I lit the candle and kept it lit all night. When I went to bed, I blew it out and said goodbye. Since then, I haven't really felt her, but still the male, and just something else. I don't quite know how to describe it. It could be the other side of the male energy, like I know he's protective over the building. Now, what I'm having is often described as sleep paralysis, but it's much more than that. There's a creature that looks like a dementor or demon. It's somewhat amorphous. The thing originally used to just scare me in my sleep during sleep paralysis, but now it's doing something much more sinister. It seems to try and hide from me now, like it doesn't want to be seen like it used to. It always attempts to suck energy from the back of my neck, my spine. It doesn't use its mouth, by the way, it extends its hand, sort of like how people perform Reiki. I can feel an electric sucking vibration running through my spine for a few seconds, and then I wake up. When I wake up, I feel drained and very tired. The only way I can stop it is if I sleep on my back so it can't access my spine. It still shows up and attempts to suck energy from another part of my body, but not much happens. I can never sleep on my stomach because this almost guarantees it will show up. If I sleep on my side, I'd push a bunch of blankets behind my neck. This kind of works, but sometimes it gets around it. It can go through objects, but apparently can't see through them. So, like, if I sleep on my back, even though it could go through my bed and try to get me, it can't because it doesn't know the exact location of my spine. At least, this is how I interpret it. I know a lot about this demon because it comes once a week, sometimes more, and it's been happening for a couple years on and off. I tried saying some prayers and it went away for a little longer, but then came back again. What the fuck can I do about this? Do you believe this thing is actually sucking energy from my spine, or it just seems like that? I never see anything weird when I'm fully awake, so I'm not schizo. I moved into a new house in a typical suburb in Australia, with my two kids who were about 7 and 8 at the time. Brick house, big yard, bushland in the back, and a massive water reservoir directly behind it. Neighbours were lovely, chatty, and soon found out the previous people pretty much moved out in the middle of the night. It started off small, thinking you see something in the corner of your eye, a light turns on or off that you don't remember turning on. Then my daughter would come to me asking what I wanted as I had called her name. I never called her. She then reported an old man in her room which terrified her, saying he had funny eyes. My son, who has ASD, refused to enter the spare room. Not even to get his iPad, which meant the world to him. He would stand at the door, not putting one toe over that line. Then it escalated to appliances turning on by themselves. The kettle, the TV, lights turning on and off right in front of you. The garage door would open up. This wasn't an electric door, an old school lift it yourself garage roller door. I'd sometimes hear heavy breathing directly behind me. Our dog would stare inside the glass doors and growl and bark, but wouldn't come inside. When the children would be at their dad's, I'd sleep with my door closed and hear knocking. I knew what it was, so I never opened the door. When they were home, I'd hear them talking, then hear the sound of walking on the carpet, so I put my bedside lamp on, thinking it was one of my kids, and no one was there. I'd physically go and check on them, and they'd be fast asleep. I'd go back to bed, hear the walking again, and feel the presence of something. Almost like its face was about to touch mine. I'd never opened my eyes, just ignored it. I was absolutely terrified when two things happened for me to cut my losses financially and leave. I was in bed watching TV when I saw this shadow man. He was clear as day, made no attempt to hide, and walked around one side of my room to the other. It was very deliberate, like it wanted me to know it was there. The next thing was when I was walking past the glass sliding doors. I noticed my dog standing in a stiff hunting stance. He was a hunting breed. He also looked terrified. When I came into sight of what he was looking at, I became immediately ill and terrified, but unable to move. Perched on the back of the chair was the biggest black bird I've ever seen. This bird was about 1 meter high and its girth was huge. My dog was 42 kilograms and it was way bigger than that. It had 3 massive talons and was completely black. It looked like its head was tucked in roosting like pigeons. But then it turned to face me directly and I realised it had no head. It wasn't decapitated, it just had no head. It stared straight at me as if it could see, then hopped onto the ground and hopped twice more before jumping onto the top of my 6-foot fence and disappearing over it. Now this bird didn't walk, just hopped, and it didn't flap its wings to get to the top of the fence. Jumped from a standing position. We were out of that house shortly after, and I haven't had any issues since with anything paranormal. Makes sense now why the previous tenants left in the middle of the night. I researched birds, both animals and paranormal, trying to figure out what it was and could never find anything. We don't have birds of that size that look like that, and nor could I see anything similar that was possibly paranormal. Every Sunday since I can remember, I go to my grandparents' house to have lunch. Usually my aunt takes me, but I got my license 3 weeks ago, so I've been driving myself there. I've been using my grandpa's old car. Their house is 30 minutes away, more or less, from where I live. They live in a kind of isolated place, so the drive there is very specific. Never lots of cars, usually just people who live there. Today I was driving there. It was raining, and since it's the day after Christmas, there were barely any cars on the road. Then, I saw this car on the other side. Didn't think anything of it, but because I was driving alone, I took a look to make sure everything was alright. Just got my license, so I'm being extra careful with everything. Well, the first thing I saw was that the car was exactly the same as mine. Which is fine, because it's a normal car to see around. Not like it's super unusual. But then I looked at the driver, and I swear it was me. It was like looking at my own reflection. I immediately got chills and had to stop the car down the road because I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I was stunned, in shock. I can almost swear that I saw myself driving. It was such a weird feeling. I don't know how to explain it. I guess it could have been a doppelganger, but the whole thing I had from the encounter was just weird. This happened in 2011. I was staying with some friends for a few weeks before our summer job at a Boy Scout camp in New York started. We heard for years that our camp was haunted in a specific campsite due to one's ashes being spread there. Curious and a fan of the paranormal world, my friends and I decided to go down to camp at midnight and check it out. We heard a few noises in our dining hall, but nothing crazy. We then proceeded to go to the campsite in question. We get there, and we sit on a fallen tree. We were quietly talking to one another and enjoying the peace and quiet. I looked up, and I saw a figure. A woman, clear as day, as if she was real. I saw her face and everything. She was in a white dress, which looked to be around 1800s women fashion. My adrenaline was rushing, but I was excited, considering I loved this stuff. I felt no fear with her. In fact, I have felt almost at peace and comfort. I stood up and walked about 5 feet towards her, allowing me to be maybe 10 yards from her. My friend stayed at the fallen tree. She was smiling at me as I calmly spoke to her, saying we meant no harm and just wanted to see her. She smiled at me again, walked behind a tree, and I never saw her after that. If I was told correctly, they don't often show themselves unless they felt safe. And with that knowledge, whether it was correct or not, I felt honoured she showed herself. My mother claims she was a demonic entity, disguised. She's a full-blown Christian and believes all paranormal activities are demonic. I clearly felt no threat or anything. I'll always remember that day. I was so fascinated and have been even more into the paranormal since then. Just thought I'd share. I've had more experiences since, but nothing like this. More like hearing a past loved one's voice. I moved into an old mansion in a very old city in France last September. When I moved in, I fell in love with the ceiling mouldings and the marble fireplaces. You can feel that it's a building steeped in history just by looking at the old wooden floors and the ceilings. I really like the aesthetics. I believe it was built back in the 1800s. I live on the first floor, where the ceilings are highest. This is where the bourgeois used to receive their guests. The second floor above me is uninhabited, and below me are the old kitchens of the mansion, which are now storage rooms. It's very dusty and creepy. At first, everything was fine. I did feel a little bit uncomfortable about the locked door next to my headboard, though. I found out later that behind that door was the staircase used by the servants to get to their rooms below the attics. From the start, some strange things happened. For example, I had to replace 4 light bulbs in a month. 1 is pretty common, I don't mind. 2 is okay. But 4? It would randomly turn off and never turn back on again. Then there is the noise at night in the walls of my room. There's some rough banging going on in my walls. I thought that it was the piping shrinking because of the temperature or something, but after seeing YouTube videos, it's not the same noise. It always happens between midnight and 4 in the morning. Even after turning off my heaters, it still bangs sometimes. Okay, now I know I'm probably going to sound crazy, but it does stop when I tell it to stop. It's also insanely cold. Like fucking cold. I pay a frickin' fortune in gas and the apartment never warms up. You can literally feel spots of icy hair. But the weirdest thing I've ever experienced is the humming and whispering at night. Sometimes when I'm laying in bed or preparing myself for bed in my bathroom, I can hear a woman humming behind the wall. I can hear whispering too. Like someone who's trying to soothe a baby. I know I'm not crazy because even my cat, who follows me around everywhere, stops everything he's doing and listens whenever this happens. The problem is, there's nothing next to my bedroom wall. It's a siding which leads to another building. There's no apartment next to mine. So what the hell? Today was the last straw that confirms my suspicions. I was watching my cat on the camera and suddenly noticed one of his balls slowly rolling down to him. I swear to God, he was standing still 2 minutes before. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't playing. He was just standing still. He then slowly walked to the ball and then looked at the corner of my bedroom and stopped moving. I think there's something in my apartment. I don't know if it's malicious, but I do think it's here. What should I do? Should I try to burn some sage? Should I ignore it? Can it be malicious? I know my story sounds like my apartment just needs to get some renovation done, but it doesn't explain the ball rolling down by itself, the humming, and the whispering. What should I do? When I was a little kid, I was pretty much fearless. I was out catching snakes barehanded before I was even in first grade. I got in lots of fights because I never backed down from older bullies. I once climbed up the outside of a 5-story building when I was in second grade, just because I looked at the blocks in the corner and thought, I could probably climb that. When I was in 4th grade, I lived in a small little one-horse town in Ohio. Population 1,500. It was the kind of small town where everyone knows everyone else and knows everybody else's business. When I was in 4th grade, my older sister, by 2.5 years, and I went out trick-or-treating. This is back in the days when you could go out trick-or-treating, so long that you would have to come home and dump your bag out at some point before going back out. Everything was going completely normal, and we were having a good time in spite of the fact that she and I don't really get along. We came up to a house and knocked on the door. A woman answered the door. Before we could even say trick or treat, I was hit with such a wave of absolute terror. I immediately turned and ran away as fast as I could. When I got about a block away, my fear had subsided and I realised I had left my sister behind. When I turned around, she was running towards me about 30 paces behind. I was embarrassed to admit that I had been scared to death and simply tried to pretend that I had run away because she did and passed her because I was much faster. I asked her, "Why did you run away?" She didn't seem to realise that I had run away before her and looked bewildered and simply said, "I don't know. I was scared for my life." Having her admit her fear allowed me to admit mine as well. I've been in many near-death situations and more than once thought I was going to die. But I've never in my life felt such absolute complete terror. And neither one of us has any explanation for it. This wasn't some haunted house on the edge of town. It was just a normal house on a normal street. The woman that answered the door didn't say or do anything that could have frightened us. She didn't look scary or threatening in any way. She looked just like any other average housewife that would have been living in the town at the time. To my recollection, she didn't say or do anything at all. She simply opened the door, and the minute we saw her, we were both filled with complete and utter terror. I have no explanation for this, nor does my sister. I went to a small private college in the Midwest. The school was founded in the mid 1800s and had a very prolific paranormal history. The story I'll relate now happened to me in the mid 80s in my freshman year of college. The college I went to was situated around a large bowl, with the student centre in the centre and all the dorms and classrooms on higher ground around the bowl. So when you're walking to any of the dorms or classroom, you're walking uphill and usually have a good view of the side of the building facing you. One night around 10 p.m, I was walking back to my dorm room and I happened to look up at my windows. I have two sets of double windows separated by about 5 feet. I saw a figure walking in front of the windows from left to right. I could only see half of my face. It was an adult male about 6 feet tall, with long dark hair and a beard. It had a very Christ-like appearance. When I saw it, it was just passing from the right windows to behind the section of brick wall, and then it walked in front of the left windows. My first response was anger. Who the hell is in my room? I thought as I ran up the hill to my dorm. My windows are on the 3rd floor and about in the centre of the building. I raced upstairs and unlocked my door. The doors in our room will close on their own unless a heavy weight is put in front of them. They're also permanently locked. If you have your room without your key, you're locked out, and you'll have to pay an RA $5 to open your door. When entering my room, I looked around and nothing had been touched. Nothing seemed to be missing, and my stash was still there. I ran downstairs to ask my friend and former roommate if he had been in my room. He still had a key to my room. Judging by the state of undress of him and his girlfriend, he hadn't been out of his room recently. I ran back upstairs and pounded on my RA's door, waking him up. I demanded to know who he let into my room and why. He had no idea what the hell I was talking about, and certainly hadn't let anyone in my room as he had been asleep. So I went back to my room to check more carefully for anything out of place. It would have been impossible for someone to have walked past both of my left-hand windows as my desk came out to the middle of the two windows. Anyone walking in front of the windows, past the windows, would have had to walk directly through my desk. I chalked it up to another harmless paranormal incident and didn't really think much about it for a couple years. One day, about 5 years later, I was getting ready for work, and while brushing my teeth in the bathroom, I happened to glance in the mirror. My blood ran cold and goosebumps broke out on my arms. The face that I was seeing in the mirror was the exact same face I had seen on the figure that walked across my room in college. My face. I was 5 years older and had shoulder-length hair and a beard. Many of my friends teased me because of my Christ-like appearance. It really freaked me out for a few minutes, but I don't think that it means anything. Just the thing that happened. My girlfriend and I often get bored with our hometown, so we travel our state a lot, exploring abandoned places. Some of these places are also deemed to be haunted. I'm browsing on my computer one day, and I found this prison located about 3 hours from our town. We decided to drive out there on the upcoming 4th of July because we figured no one would be there for the holiday. The prison was very large, with 10 or so buildings ranging from cell blocks to indoor workout areas. All of these buildings were surrounded by guard towers and fencing that was impossible to enter without breaking the chain links. We parked behind these trees in the front parking lot and walked up to the main building entrance used for prisoner intake. Lucky for us, the front door simply opened and we could just walk right in. We passed through that building and here we are now inside the prison itself. It's a very open space with sidewalks and courtyards connecting the buildings. However, there were little things that seemed off about the whole place. Dead crows that lined the sidewalks were the most noticeable. It was like they flew over the prison and just fell out of the sky. Even the graffiti was made up of weird symbols that we didn't understand. We passed all that a little on edge now, and as we walked, I saw letters on the buildings. A, B, C were regular cell blocks. When we passed, I thought to myself that we should check it out because B is the first letter of my name. Odd thought to have, but I went with it. The cell blocks formed the shape of a T, and in the middle of the T was a guard station, with a ladder leading them to the second floor if they needed to go up there, without having to interact with the inmates. The upstairs area connected to a hallway that led to a boiler room and a door with stairs leading down the side of the building. I walked up those stairs and past the boiler room, but I stopped dead in my tracks when I got to this hallway. I shined my phone flashlight into the hallway, and even though it was daytime outside, my lights only went 1 inch into this area. I felt myself shiver, even though I live in the south and it's 90 degrees out. I asked out loud, if there's anyone here with us, to make yourself known. I'm sure this was a mistake, but I didn't mean it negatively. I just felt compelled to say it. From this pitch black darkness, I hear a noise that sounded like something scurrying away, such as a small animal. I figured that's all it was that made me nervous, when all of a sudden, I hear footsteps full of sprinting directly at me. It sounded like whatever it was had massive feet and could run unnaturally fast. I ran out of the building and down the stairs with my girlfriend right in front of me. We both looked at each other and determined that whatever it was didn't want us here. We did end up walking around just a little more on other parts of the property, but we felt watched the entire time. As we left through the front door, we felt better, almost as if we were released from an unpleasant fog of energy. We had sage in the car and burned some, which also helped us feel better. I try not to think about it often, but I do wonder what we encountered. Okay, so about 3 years ago, my mum and I were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. We didn't really have any money, and it was the only place we could afford. It was a super old Victorian home in Tacoma, Washington, that had been sectioned off into 4 different little apartments. Since I was a kid, I've always been super sensitive to energy, whether it's people or a place. If there's some type of negativity, I can sense it. When we first moved in there, I felt weird. I wouldn't say that I felt anything evil there, but the place felt off. A couple months in, I went to spend the night at my boyfriend's place, which wasn't something I did often. About 9:30, I got a call from my mom. Mind you, at the time she was 63. I picked up and could immediately tell she was upset. She asked me if I was with my boyfriend and if I was okay. I told her yes, I'm perfectly fine. And she then explained to me that she'd gone to lay down to go to sleep when she heard my voice yell her name. At first I doubted if she just had a bad dream, but she was sure that she hadn't even been laying down for more than a minute, still wide awake, and then it was like I was right in the doorway yelling mama. We both tried to forget about it, but my mom was convinced something was there in our apartment that was trying to scare her. A week later, she'd gotten some Palo Santos to try cleansing the apartment. She again did this while I was out, but she called me scared, begging me to come home. When I got back, she explained she'd done the usual starting from the front door, going throughout the living room, to the bed and bath, then the kitchen, working her way front to back. She said as she came to walk back into the living room, where we had this little table and chairs, her chair was pulled out from the table, tilted back, balancing on its back legs. I tried reassuring her we'd start looking for a new place, but it wasn't going to happen fast because of our money problems. About a month after that, I was on the couch while she was cutting vegetables for dinner, and I heard her scream. I ran into the kitchen and she said she'd placed the knife down on the cutting board, turned around to the sink to grab another vegetable. When she turned back, the knife was gone. She said she turned back to the sink and was checking the counters, but it wasn't there. So she opened up the drawer to get another knife, and when she turned back to the cutting board, it was there again. We left the next day to stay with a friend for a while, but this was the most scared I'd ever seen my mom. And I know it wasn't because she was losing it or just getting old. She's still very lucid. I still believe if we'd stayed there, something bad would have happened to her. The experience happened with one of my friends at the time. He had another friend from high school that we wanted to hang out with. At this time, we were all in our early to mid 20s. When I got to this guy's house, the house was a mess. There were holes in the walls, kind of dirty, clothing everywhere, and this was just downstairs when I entered the house. When I got to the guy's room, it wasn't as bad, but because of how the house looked right when I entered, I jokingly asked the guy if his house is haunted or something. Then, his eyes lit up. "How do you know?" he asked me. I said I was just joking, but he went on to tell me about experiences he'd had from hearing voices to slashing things around and making menacing sounds. He seemed kind of scared at the level of activity. He believed it was out to get him. So my skeptic mind kicked in, and also my empathy a little. I didn't want him to be scared, so I thought to myself, how can I disprove this? I was wearing a necklace, so I thought and told him, "Hey, this thing is as menacing and as strong as you say. You should be able to tear my necklace if you wanted to do so." He said, "I don't know, but sure, let's do it." Again, my skeptic mind kicked in. I told both of my friends where to stand. I sat down on his bed. I held my necklace and braced my arms to make it as steady as possible, and furthermore, looked at the already natural spin of the necklace. After a minute or two, I told him I'm ready. Both of my friends started taunting the spirit to spin the necklace. I was looking at their hands to make sure there were no tricks, so everything was set up on my part. They started to yell at it, "Spin it, spin it!" And the light right spin the necklace had started to get larger and larger, to the point where the necklace rope part. Sorry, it's slipping my mind what that's called. It was bumping my fingers. I knew the only way that could happen is if I physically spun it myself, and did so hard where it's almost flying out of my fingers. But it's not done. My darn skeptic mind wasn't convinced, so I told them to stop the necklace from spinning. As soon as they did, the necklace slowed from the right hard spin to the light natural right spin again, essentially stopping. Again, I wasn't convinced because I'm an idiot like that. So I thought to myself, okay, it went right. The natural spin is right. If I tell them to say go left, that should be impossible at this point. So I asked them to leave. The natural light spin literally stopped to a standstill, started going left, then to a hard left spin like before. Finally, right, I freaked out and dropped the necklace. This all happened right on command. I couldn't make it out as natural anymore. Shouldn't have from the beginning, but we're not done yet. I wanted to retest this later again at his house, but I tried testing it again in other places, and this just didn't happen without me physically spinning it myself. But this guy died a week later due to a drug overdose. This one is just an experience I cannot explain, and I've tried. The best I have for a natural explanation for this is that I unconsciously spun it myself. But remember, I had braced myself for it, and I know for a fact I didn't move. In hindsight, I should have put the necklace on something not human, but damn it, I didn't think this would happen. Another natural explanation is that it was a trick. Again, I prepared for that. Or maybe some weird magnetic phenomena I wasn't aware of. But seriously, all of that is stretching and just doesn't make sense as much as what actually happened. If you have any other natural explanations you think of, let me know. For context, I live in a top floor apartment where the attics are segmented, meaning we can't access anyone else's attic apart from our own. I've been having this issue for around a year and a half now. At random intervals each day, I'll hear a scurrying or a scratching type sound, seemingly coming directly above me. For the most part, I chalked it up to rats or birds, somehow caught in the attic, but I have been questioning this. My family has also heard the sounds, so it's not just me hearing them. Last year, I decided to take a ladder and look into the attic. Keep in mind, the roof is quite low, and I also don't trust myself actually standing up there, as the ceiling is thin and I would probably fall through. I shined a flashlight to look around. Nothing apart from some old chairs, a baby walker I had as a kid, and just plain old insulation. No birds, no rats, no animals to speak of. I shrug it off and go on with my life, still hearing the noises like usual. I feel a little unnerved though. The noises are usually quite quick, but sometimes they can linger. Then, what actually brought on this post is what happened just now. I'm sitting around and I hear a thud coming from above me. I panicked and asked my mom if she heard it too, and she confirmed she also heard it, but thought it was me. I get the ladder and flashlight once more. I look up, this time with more intent, as I move some insulation and other junk out of the way. Nothing. So the question is, can anyone tell me what's going on? I don't want to jump to any ghostly conclusions, but I'm starting to get a little worried. A couple of years ago, I moved into an apartment with a housemate I had only met once. On my first day of moving in, I opened the front door and saw her standing at the end of a long entrance hallway. I exaggerate long because it was an easy 7 meters long as the apartment was behind a shop. I smiled at her and she ran up the stairs. I figured she must have forgotten I'd moved in and I scared her, so I just let her be. I went upstairs to my room and I was potting around unpacking my things when my housemate called my phone. I answered, and in the background I could hear checkout machine noises. I frantically asked where she was, as I thought she was home because I saw her in the house. She rushed home and we searched the house and didn't find anybody, so I told her what I saw and she freaked out and said when she moved in, her friend who was helping her saw the same girl but running down the stairs, hiding in the understair storage, much like the Harry Potter sword. And he thought it was her too, and decided to try to prank her by blocking her in with a rock, only to find her actually bringing boxes inside. We both decided how it was probably nothing to worry about, as the spirit didn't seem malicious. A month or two passed when we received a call from the real estate agent saying we needed to go collect an article being published about our home. And we got excited. Our house is going to be in the paper. How cool. But it was far from cool. Upon reading the article, we discovered that a lady had been murdered in the house and the case had never been closed. And to make matters worse, it was in my bedroom too. This explained the mysterious lady running from us. As we continue to live there, more paranormal things happen specifically in my bedroom too. If this catches people's attention, I'll be posting more about spooky house stories. But how bizarre that we both had paranormal experience on the days we were moving in, right? My uncle died on the 27th last year. I grew up with my aunt and her family, so I was with my uncle quite a bit growing up. I moved away after I went to uni, so we saw each other less over the years. When he was diagnosed with cancer, I supported my aunt as much as possible, following the circle of caring rules. I didn't consider myself as one of the inner circles, just sent amazing care packages and checked in with her to see if she could be supported further. The years passed, and the day after his 1-year death day, I had a very vivid dream with him. Those dreams are not really dreams in my experience. We talked and laughed, and he was so carefree, happy and present. None of the adult distractions that pull attention away preyed upon his mind. I didn't remember the exact conversation, just his demeanour and general mood. Last night, I remembered to text my aunt with the dream, saying he was happy and present and serene. I got a response from her, asking to talk immediately. I called, and she was driving home, 2 hours earlier than here. I gave her the gist, and she said she had to read to me one of her dreams she wrote in her journal. Turns out that key phrases she captured a few months ago when he visited her: serene, present mentioned at least 5 times, and happy were among the other thoughts from the dream. It was incredible knowing he's visiting his loved ones, and I was grateful he considered me. I live in a home built in the 1800s. The neighbourhood rose during that time frame, with some fallen homes added, and some historic homes moved here too. I moved in with my boyfriend in 1999. He had lived here for several years prior, then encouraged me to move in. He moved out when I changed the locks in 2007. That's a story for another time. Throughout my life, I've been sensitive to others and experienced clairalience. I've also been able to predict random events and some good ones too. Some are not so good. When I moved here, I'd been practicing yoga, healing touch, and guided meditation. Several times, I was startled out of a light sleep by a deep voice speaking in my ear in an ancient language. I appreciated the attempt, but super freaked out because it was scary. After the 3rd or 4th near heart attack, I said to what was speaking to me, "Please stop talking to me out loud. It scares me. Come in images or some other way." I never heard another peep out of that one. In the fall, the house ghosts are much more active than at other times. For me, I sense 2, but I feel like there's another really quiet lurker. That one just observes. The primary ghost is the head of the mischief. In the fall, things will go missing. Fragile items will magically slide to the edge of the counter or table, teeter, then crash. That one isn't unique to this space. Specifically, when I was in college, that happened with a little glass dish my boyfriend gave me. From across the room, I saw it start to rock back and forth and then crash to the ground. Keys and eyeglasses will go missing and turn up eventually somewhere not logical if they just fell or I put them down absent-mindedly. A couple who knew my ex and his first wife house sat several times. One of the ghosts tapped the husband as he walked by. He wasn't afraid, but a little bit startled. I'm now friends with that couple, and we chat about ghosts sometimes. This house was open for multiple room rentals during the Depression, and I feel like some of the spirits come from that time. So for context, my daughter is a month old. Her father and I live together in a super tiny house, and we currently have our bed and my daughter's cradle set up in the living room because there's more space instead of trying to cram them into a bedroom that isn't much bigger than a walk-in closet. The living room has a double doorway, extra wide doorway with no actual doors, that's between it and the kitchen. Anywho, roughly a week ago, it was about 3:30 a.m. and I'd just gotten my daughter fed, changed, and put back to bed. My fiancé was sleeping. My daughter was sleeping, and I took a moment to myself to enjoy the quiet and stepped out onto the front porch to smoke a cigarette. I'm about halfway through my cigarette when I hear my daughter screaming bloody murder. I've never heard her screaming like this, but I knew it was her. I throw my cigarette down and run back inside. My daughter's still fast asleep and was laying the exact same way she had been when I checked on her before I went outside. Fiancé was still snoring like nothing had happened. And he's a kind of light sleeper, so I know that if she'd actually been screaming, he would have woken up. The TV was on, but it was playing this live music video from YouTube that was just soothing piano music, and I play it all the time. My daughter seems to really like classical piano, and it helps her stay asleep. So I know it wasn't some prank video or something. It freaked me out, and I stayed up till later in the morning when my fiancé woke up because I was too anxious to sleep. Well, tonight, it's about 3:45 and I just got my daughter back to sleep after feeding her. And I was in the kitchen making a cup of coffee because fuck my sleep schedule. And I hear this weird noise. And I kind of glance out the corner of my eye to the living/bedroom, and there's this tall, inky black shadow leaned over my fiancé's head. When I look directly at it, it's gone, and my fiance makes this weird choked noise. So I run and jump on the bed and wake him up and ask him if he's okay. He's still mostly asleep and he says, yeah, but I was having a weird dream. It wasn't bad, but it was distracting me from what I was supposed to be paying attention to. So I ask him what he was supposed to be paying attention to, and he says, I guess the thing leaning over me. My hiking experience was this. I was solo camping at the Lake Dubonnet campsites west of the lake, near Interlochen, Michigan. In the morning, I set off for a hike around nearby Lost Lake. Fitting name? I realised after a short while, as I neared Lost Lake, that the forest was absolutely silent. Not a sound. No birds, not a squirrel, nothing. I felt like I'd entered a sort of dream state, thinking, am I dreaming this? Why is the forest silent? As I kept walking, I started to hear the sound of what I thought was a helicopter coming nearer. I was confused by that, but there's a Great Lakes Marine Academy in Traverse City, so I thought maybe a helicopter was flying back to town. By that time, I had previously lived in Interlochen for 2 years and had never heard such a sound. But your mind tries to make sense of things. I kept walking, and the sound continued to come nearer and then become deafening, as though it was buzzing in my ears. At that same point, I then felt as though I could see behind me, and that a bear was running up to charge from behind and tackle me. At this point, the helicopter noise was super loud and I panicked, whipped around and nothing was there. And the noise stopped instantly, and I felt like I'd just woken up. I shook my head, super confused, looked all around me, looking in the sky for a plane or anything, but there was truly nothing. I was beyond perplexed, of course. I wanted to get back to my tent and car ASAP, but I did not want to turn around and walk back past Lost Lake any more than I had to. So I kept going on the trail, which thankfully was circular enough to get me back to the campsite. I've never experienced that again, either in that exact spot or anyone else. I guess I'll forever be puzzled. I watch Ghost Adventures and have seen people who've experienced similar things to my story, so that sort of makes me feel less alone. Would be happy to hear of any of the other lost time experiences anyone has had. I moved into my current house last April and I love it. It's older, built in the 20s, and has a semi-finished basement I'm working on and a big garage. Huge yard for my dogs. Good stuff all around. However, myself as well as friends have noticed that my basement feels incredibly cold. Most definitely has the feeling of being watched. I have a dog and cat that absolutely will not go down there unless I go with them. I keep my dog's kennel in the living room area of the basement, and I've heard him down there growling and snarling while he's kennelled. Now I try not to kennel him unless I absolutely must. He's never had an issue with his kennel until now. He also barks at the kitchen and basement, stares at them both a lot, etc. Bizarre behaviour. For the last couple of months, I've had some pretty blatant activity going on. I guess the first would be when I heard a woman cough in my basement. I immediately thought someone might be squatting down there. It's a large basement, lots of places to potentially hide. So I had a friend come over and check it out with me, but nobody found it. A week or so after, I was sitting on my couch upstairs and I heard a very clear, obvious whistle, as if someone was whistling and it was coming from my kitchen. Kitchen leads to the basement. Sounded like the person was just one room over. Both of my pets immediately perked up and seemed alert after hearing it. More recently, I had a Christmas decorative piece on my kitchen counter move an inch or so. And today, a kitchen cabinet closed on its own. Absolutely no draft in the house. I'm always hearing thumps and dishes moving in my kitchen when I'm in bed, and I never go check it out because, to be honest, it freaks me out. It also irritates my pets because my dog growls and freaks out anytime he hears it. Has anyone experienced anything similar? And what should I do about it? It's getting more intense as time goes on. This isn't the first house I've lived in with a paranormal presence, but this is what I would say is the most active one. Also, I'd like to mention that I don't know much about the history of the house, and neither does my landlord, unfortunately. He hasn't owned it for very long. It was about 4 in the morning. I had got out of bed to use the head and made my way back to the bedroom. I lingered near the door, not sure why. I might have felt uneasy for some reason, but as I stood there, I heard distinctly a very soft, very small voice say, "Goodbye." Now, when I say small, I mean small. That was the impression I got from the sound. The word was small, so small I could pick it up and put it in a cold medicine capsule. I mean small. And yes, I felt the word physically. I can't describe what I mean by that. And then, a few moments later, as I stood there trying to figure out what the hell that was, there was a small odd laugh. Not as clear as the word, but still there. Now, I try to be skeptical, scientific. If I can't touch it or see it, it's not real. And even then there's an explanation for it. A logical reason. The fact I heard these two things has freaked me out. I know it wasn't in my head. I wasn't half asleep or anything. I clearly heard the word goodbye and then something resembling a laugh. Now, I've been watching a lot of ghost and paranormal videos on YouTube lately. Slapped Ham, Nuke's Top 5, etc. COVID, you know. But I've begun to feel increasingly uncomfortable in my home, and I don't know why. I started having the sensation that the more I watched and discussed these videos, I was creating the environment for it to happen in my own home. Kind of like how the Eldar brought Slanesh into being, if you get 40k lore. Just feeding and feeding it into being. This wasn't the first time something had happened. When we had first moved in, I used to catch in my peripheral vision this smudge of black moving alongside my armchair. Just a quick flash. Like someone walking past or something. And every now and then in the basement, I would catch a flash of what looked like someone walking left to right in the next room, from my work area. Like the other site, I figured I'd just been mistaken or something. Then I sat down with my kids. My son and adopted daughter lived in the basement, in another room, on the far side away from my work area. I mentioned hearing the word and laughing, and they just shrugged it off. According to those, we had a boy living under the stairs, and he interacted with them multiple times a day. They called him Tony. They had told me about it, but I didn't listen, since, like above, I couldn't see it, hear it, or touch it. He would somehow make his presence known to them. Had knocked a lamp off a table once, and would wake them in the middle of the night so they could talk with him. I don't recall them getting replies. Tony is a nice spirit, that even the dogs weren't or aren't bothered by him. I don't know what to do right now. I'm afraid if I pay more attention it could grow more. And I'm not thinking of burning sage in the house or having a priest bless it. But I'm missing watching my ghost videos. If only for the entertainment, and I don't want to be uncomfortable anymore. My family and I just moved into our new house, rental. Upon moving, I discovered the previous renter had committed suicide several months ago. I hadn't felt anything off. However, in the last week or so, I've had a few experiences I'd like to share. First experience. Home alone at 8 AM, playing on my phone in the living room. Kids were both still sleeping, so kept the volume off. Then, something which sounded like an object sliding across the countertop. Kitchen is an open concept leading into the living room. It was loud, enough so to make me jump. Decided to turn on the TV low volume to fill in the sounds of the house. A few minutes later it happened again, just as loud. Cannot figure out what it was. Second experience? Watching TV in the bedroom around 3 AM. Couldn't sleep. Put on my headphones and linked them so I didn't disturb anyone sleeping. The volume kept changing up and down by itself. I would set it back to where I had it. Shortly after, it would change again. Third experience. TV remote goes missing. We tore the whole house apart twice. Room by room looking for it. Decided it was just gone and would turn up at some point. We have a very tidy house, so no idea where it was. 2 days later, the fiancé finds it laying in the middle of the bonus room floor, which I had just vacuumed. Fourth experience, I get woken up at 4 a.m. by my toddler's tablet blasting cucamelons for her breakfast. Her tablet wasn't in her room, just laying in the middle of the hallway. When I went to turn it off, the tablet had no Wi-Fi connection, and the YouTube videos won't play without Wi-Fi. Song lyrics, everybody wakes up in the morning, everybody's hungry. I know everybody wakes up in the morning. It's breakfast time, let's go. What do you all think I should do? I'm trying to stay level-headed, but it seems like more and more is happening every day. Back in 2016, I worked as the director of housing at a small college near Chicago. Every day, I would receive voicemails from students and their parents about facility-related issues, questions, the usual stuff. One summer day, I received a butt-dialed message. I was instantly filled with warmth and joy as I heard the small voice of a child singing distantly. I couldn't make out the specific words, but being a little baby crazy, I found the mistake precious. Towards the end of the minute-long call, it was clear the caller realised they were butt dialing, and after a little shuffling around, I could hear an adult laugh and the caller hung up. I saved the voicemail to share with my husband, who also worked at the same college, when he returned from his military drill weekend. I forgot about the voicemail. Many weeks later, we began our student housing registration for the next year, and my voicemails filled up once again. As I began to make it through the dozens of messages, I stumbled upon my saved messages. My stomach dropped when the auto attendant announced that the message was received 8 weeks earlier. Coincidentally, I found out a week earlier that I was around 8 weeks pregnant. I shared this with all my co-workers and not a single person left my office, goosebump free. This happened again this December. My husband and I have been talking about having another child. We made my family and friends aware that we're unofficially trying for baby 2. Out of nowhere, my mom texted me that she woke me up in the middle of the night, certain that I was pregnant. Not thinking, knowing that I'm pregnant. I brushed it off because I had my period. And I haven't been particularly active in attempts as my job has been so stressful and consistently kept me late every day. For months, as we managed COVID treatment options for hospitals. Fast forward about a month later, I took a pregnancy test after feeling a little unlike myself. You guessed it. I scheduled my ultrasound and they measured me as 6 weeks and 6 days. I texted my mom and moments later she found a text to me, sent me the screenshots and the message was dated exactly 6 weeks and 6 days earlier. What is this? I'm wrestling with some sort of message from beyond. Is this something that anyone else has heard of? How are these messages and signs coming to me? I get such a weird, uncomfortable feeling about these situations.